Yo, what's going on guys, it is Foxy98 here. Welcome back to a brand new video and another F1 debate for you guys today here on the channel. Today is a topic in which I wanted to discuss and I left it out of my F1 debate video into the Australian Grand Prix as it was something that I felt deserved its own type of video. No, it's probably not going to be a massive ramble half an hour long piece, but nonetheless, we're going to get straight into it. And today, we're going to be talking about the brand new proposed format changes for sprint weekends in Formula 1. If you're not aware, Formula 1 were attempting, and it looks like they're not going to get it done in time, to change the sprint format for the weekend itself. As things currently stand, sprint races are going to be at 6 different events throughout the course of this season, with the original format that we've been running with since we started sprint races being on the Friday we'd have FP1 and then we would have qualifying in the afternoon. Then on the Saturday we would have the FP2 session in the morning, and then we would have the sprint race in the afternoon, and then obviously the results of the sprint race would then lead us to go into the Sunday Grand Prix itself. Now, ahead of the changes going into the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the plan instead was to go with an FP1 session on the Saturday morning, have qualifying for the Sunday Grand Prix in the afternoon, then on the Saturday morning, have qualifying for the sprint race, the full qualifying just like we've seen before, and then the sprint race in the afternoon, and then we would have the actual main event in the on the Sunday then in the afternoon. And it's been causing some widespread debate as to what is the ideal weekend for Formula 1. What works, what doesn't work. And obviously, what Stefano Domenicali wants is to reduce the amount of time that F1 drivers get and teams to practice during a race weekend. Now, for somebody that's been a fan of Formula 1 for my whole life, and I've also had the pleasure and the opportunity to go to 2 Formula 1 races so far in my life, I wanted to give you guys my personal thoughts and opinions on what works, what doesn't work, and why I genuinely believe that Stefano Domenicali has kind of upset me. Not upset me, but frustrated me with what he's trying to be saying. Because the fact is what Stefano has been trying to say is that the fans, he's doing this for the fans. But at the end of the day, no one's really asked the question, hey fans, do you like practice? Because we can get rid of them if you want us to. There's never been that question, but in my personal opinion, I actually feel like practice sessions are key and are actually sometimes some of the best points of the weekend. Now, granted, when you're watching it on TV, it's not the greatest thing to feast your eyes on. What it is good for is being able to pretty much see your team or your drivers out on track. But when you actually physically go to a Formula 1 race weekend, now it depends on what circuit you go to. For example, I've been to 2 completely different circuits. I've been to Silverstone and I've been to Singapore. So going to the British Grand Prix, for an example, on the Friday when there was practice, FP1 and FP2, this is back in 2018, when we went there, we had the opportunity to literally do an entire lap of the circuit and just pick where we wanted to sit. For me, I feel like if you take away every practice session that you get given, and obviously then you're allocated to either your general admission or your grandstand seats or whatever, you kind of just lose the opportunity to simply just sit down and just watch the cars going around and around and around. And I know what you're going to be saying. Well, hang on a minute. In qualifying, you see them going around and around and around. And in the race, you see them going around and around and around. The thing with practice, and what I love about practice so much, especially when you go to a Grand Prix, is the amount of freedom that you get. You're not restricted when it comes to practice, really. Like I said, we had at British Grand Prix dedicated seats for the Beckett's grandstand. Now, despite this, we could have obviously sat there. I mean, we did at some point during practice, but what we were able to do is we started over at the Hangar Straight. Then we made our way towards Beckett's and so forth, and then we got over to Copse Corner, and I think that's when practice 1 ended. So we got all the way around to there. By the time we then had our break and got some food and whatnot, and FP2 was around, we then made our way over to Luffield and Brooklands down in that area, and then we shifted our way all the way up then to the start-finish straight until FP2, eventually finished. And then we looped our way all the way around to the Vale chicane then, and we started watching F2 before, on that specific weekend, our legs literally burnt to a crisp, and we had to escape. But that just kind of shows, really, that was so much freedom. We literally watched Formula 1 practice session from every single angle that we wanted to. And then obviously for FP3, again, we weren't really restricted. Obviously it's a lot more busier because it's a Saturday, but I feel like that's what the race weekends are for. And that's what makes them so good, is you get an opportunity to build up a race weekend. You know, we don't need high quality, just straight flat out action from start all the way to finish. The thing with practice and why I love FP1, 2 and 3 to then go to qualifying in the race is we get a nice gradual build-up. You know, we get the initial hype of Formula 1, it's race week. That's the first set of hype. The second set of hype that we get is the Thursday press conferences because, we're seeing our drivers. The weekend feels like it's starting to get into emotion. Then we get FP1 and FP2. And FP1, it's great. We just get to build ourselves into it. We get to see the cars on track for the first time wherever we go in. So let's just say Austria. This is the first time we get to see the race cars out on track at Austria, and it looks really, really cool. In FP2 then, things start to get a bit more serious because we see our first bit of qualifying simulation runs, so we can kind of get a little bit of a gist of what's going to happen during the weekend. Then we obviously get the long run pace, so then we're detailing all of that down. Then we go into the Saturday and things start to pick up. We get FP3 and we see drivers going out on quali runs to simulate the qualifying session, and then you sort of look forward to it and you see a little bit of surprises here and there. Then you've got qualifying and then you've got the race. That's a perfect build-up for me, and that's why I love practice so much, and I really don't want them to hurt that too much, to be honest. I don't mind making changes, but I just feel like practice is genuinely a great opportunity for you to just get a little look at Formula 1, but it's not as crazy, and it's not as busy, and it's not as hectic, and it's just nice to be able to have that freedom. Of course, in Singapore, it was a completely different scenario. Because it's a street circuit, obviously it's very difficult for you to try and traverse from left, right and centre. So for Singapore, for example, we had seats at the Padang Grandstand for FP1 and 2, and then we had seats over at Raffles Boulevard for FP3, and then we had grandstand seats for the pit lane then, or on the pitch straight, for the race itself. But again, that was cool because FP1, 2 and 3, yes, we had grandstand seats, obviously, but we were just, we're going to go in at this stand and we're going to go to this stand. And I'm pretty sure we had to book what stand we wanted to sit at for practice. I can't remember, if I'm honest. But again, it's, it was nice to just have that opportunity to see them going around and snapping your favourite drivers and just having a bit of a breather, from everything and getting yourself built up. I feel like, if we had like practice and then quali on the one day, that's okay. But then you have another quali and then another sprint and then a sprint and then you have another race and then you're trying to work out, this is qualifying, but you had qualifying yesterday, but this is qualifying for the sprint. The qualifying for the sprint is just for the sprint. The qualifying for the Friday is for the race on the Sunday. So everything that happens in the, it's just too confusing, in my opinion. I just don't really think it works. But what's my ideal race weekend then? What would I do if I was at the hands and it said, write down on the rulebook what's there going to be for the sprint weekend? I'll tell you what I think it's going to be. So, first things first, on the Friday, I would have FP1. As they've always done, a practice session for an hour, hour and a half, whatever, it tends to be. I would actually change it though. So, FP1 would be an hour and a half because we're cutting down practice from 3 sessions to 2 sessions. I integrate FP3 into FP1 and 2. So there's an extra half an hour in those slots. And I have a 1.5 hour practice on the Friday morning. Once that's complete, we then have the standard break and then we would go into qualifying. This qualifying would set the grid for the Sunday Grand Prix. Only the Sunday. And this is where obviously you would start for the sprint race. But I'm going to make a tweak to that. Heading into the following day then, we then have FP2. So once again, what I'm trying to premise in my weekends is pretty much the same as what the sprint format is now, with just a minor tweak in there. And it allows the morning that you wake up to watch Formula 1 to build the excitement up, to have a little bit of a chilled out session before, e.g. the 2 practice sessions, and then you get yourself rised up for a qualifying and then a sprint. So FP2, I then have FP2 on the Saturday morning. Then it comes to the sprint race. Now, how would I make the sprint race different? Because right now, at the moment, the sprint races are a good idea. The problem is everybody is taking too little risks in the sprint race. Because yes, you can gain 5-6 places and start 5-6 places higher up, but you can also then lose and drop, 15s or so places or whatever. So how would I do this? Well, the qualifying that was completed on the Friday, what I would do is actually reverse grid order just the top 10. So instead of reverse grid ordering the entire top 20, or the entire 20 drivers, not top 20, I've gone with the top 10. And why have I gone with the top 10? Well, it's quite simple. The teams like your AlphaTauris, your Williams cars, the teams that are at the back of the field, they're basically only going to be competing in qualifying on a Friday to try and start last, basically. So they get reverse grid pole, effectively, for the sprint. And of course, that's just not the greatest thing to do in the world. And it would really damage qualifying as a whole. Because, yes, they would start at the back on Sunday, but at the end of the day, they would be last anyway. So in order to force teams to effectively not sandbag and try and focus on the sprint and make sure they maximize the whole weekend, I've gone with reverse grid the top 10. Now, reverse grid the top 10, and then you have your sprint race. Whatever order anybody finishes in that sprint race has no effect on the final race on the Sunday. Leave the sprint race alone and do not allow it to affect the Sunday. When it affects the Sunday, we then get a problem whereby everyone just takes things cautiously or, never. But what we want to see is drivers really going for it on a sprint. We know how fun a sprint is. Just look at the British Grand Prix back in 2022 last season when we saw that safety car start and effectively a sprint for like 10 laps or whatever it was. That was some of the best racing we've ever seen. And that's because there was no risk of, starting further back. And it was all about just gaining things. And I think by reverse gridding the top 10, you then will still have battles in there. Because those drivers in front of you, yes, they're in slower cars. But this is their opportunity to do anything they can to hold those positions. Because it doesn't affect them for the Sunday. If they start 9th, in the Sunday and they're on the front row, so be it. It doesn't matter. If they have a horrible sprint race and it all goes to pan because they threw everything at it to stay in front of the Red Bulls, for an example, oh well, doesn't matter because you start 9th anyway for the main race, and that's the most important thing. And I think, that's pretty much the weekend I would go with. I like the sprint format weekend as a whole. It's just the qualifying and the sprint and the race. So basically, the most important things of the weekend, which are crucial and need to be adjusted. I really don't agree with the whole practice, qualifying, sprint, race. It just doesn't work for me. I still think that practice is crucial. And like I said, if you have an opportunity to go to a Grand Prix circuit, like your Silverstones, your Austrias, Zandvoorts, those type of circuits where they allow you to have the freedom to just walk around the track and pick where you want to just watch it for a bit, that to me is more important than anything else. Because like I said, at Silverstone in 2018, it was such a pleasure to just go wherever we wanted on the circuit. It's the point where we've literally watched Formula 1 cars at every single point on the track. And I think that's really important that it stays that way. I'm more inclined to allow for, changes to happen in Formula 1. At the end of the day, Formula 1 would just go stale. But by removing pretty much 2 or 3 practice sessions like they want to and trying to remove them going forwards, it just, to me, doesn't work and it makes things too confusing. I'd kind of take the route of what F2 do. I'm pretty sure F2, I don't watch F2 much, to be honest, which is why I'm a bit novice to this. I'm pretty sure when it comes to their reverse grids, that's from what happened in qualifying. They then reverse grid the sprints or whatever. I'm really not too sure. I don't really watch F2, but if it's the same format, then hey, make it the same format. It all works for me. But that's pretty much all I wanted to discuss for you today. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my race format? What is your ideal format for Formula 1 moving forward, specifically on a sprint weekend? Maybe for a full race weekend, what would you go ahead and change? But if you end up enjoying the video though, drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. And like I said, the comment section is open for all of your interpretations on what you would do during a Formula 1 race weekend. But for now, I'm out. Take care all. Peace.